This is Who Said Avery, and this is a Lakewood 223 20-inch fan from probably the mid 80s. I don't know exactly. I'm not familiar with the date code on these Lakes, but anyway, it's a 20-inch Lakewood, and we're about to tear it apart because the motor has developed a stalling issue. You'll notice on like the lower speeds, that's low, see it barely turns, and then medium, it still barely moves, but then on high, you can see this thing is in desperate need of help. For the record, I did lubricate the bearings yesterday morning because every season before I put this thing into use, I always take the blade hub off the motor and I lubricate the rear and front bearings. This, yes, has a motor that can still actually be lubricated. This was before all the fans began with those sealed bearing jobs where you can't even service them, and then they burn up if you look at them wrong. But anyway, I know for a fact this motor has never been apart on this thing, and I'm sure it's well overdue for a disassembly, degrease, and cleanup. So that's what we're going to do, and hopefully we can get this thing back in order. And yes, this fan is in absolute horrible condition. This thing has literally been, well, it looks like it's been in a fist fight or something, but it's in rough shape. But it still serves its purpose. So I'm go ahead and remove the grill on it, and we'll get it apart, and we'll start cleaning the motor up. So I'll go ahead and unplug it. Okay, I've removed the grill and pulled the blade off, and this thing is so stiff I can barely turn it with my hand. This thing, it's a wonder it even moved at all. So yeah, this booger is gummed 5 ways from Friday, so we're taking this thing apart and servicing it now. And from the looks of it, there's 4 1/4-inch bolts that are holding the motor to the frame, so I'll remove those real fast. Alright, and then you have 2 1/4-inch bolts on the front that thread all the way through to the back to these, I believe, are 11/32. So I'm going to go ahead and disassemble the motor. It's no wonder it was so gummed up with so much resistance. Look at all that gunk on there. It's not supposed to look like that, people. Not supposed to look like that at all. So I'm going to clean the bearing sleeves in addition to the actual shaft on the I can't think of the name of this part right now, but I'm going to clean the motor shaft on this. And to clean it, you would normally use rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. I don't have any, so I'm going to be using this antiseptic sand sanitizer, 80% alcohol, because it's so liquidy. I've used this stuff on motors before, and I've had no issue with it. I mean, and this stuff does not smell good at all. It smells awful. I don't see how people can drink this chemical and put it in their system. I don't. But anyway, I'm basically going to do like Radio TV Fauno Nut always preaches in his Fauno servicing videotapes. We're going to basically take some swabs and then the alcohol, clean the sleeves on both the front and rear of the motor plate really well, and then we'll clean this, and then we'll put just a small drop of Zoom spout oil on the shaft and use that as kind of like an assembly lube. And then we'll go ahead and reassemble it, and I'll show you how I seat the bearing on it. Alright, that looks a lot better, doesn't it? You can see right there all the gunk that came off. There's a lot of pitting, it looks like. So this is definitely a high hour fan, no doubt. And that was all the gunk that was inside of the sleeve on the back plate of the motor. This was step 1, step 2, and then step 3. You can see that's a big improvement. Before we reassemble this, something I want to point out, because I'll get lambasted in the comment section and by the peanut gallery if I don't, and I know somebody may actually be here desperately trying to find an answer. But if you take this apart and one of your bushings goes flying across the room, which if your motor is extremely gummed up, it shouldn't, but they're dual-sided. They're different on either side. One end is flat, as you can see, and then the other end has kind of a flared base towards the inside. The portion with the flared end faces inward. It faces up on the plate. Same concept on the other bearing. Degrease those really well in addition to the sleeves, because those can also cause resistance and binding with the motor. But just remember, the flared portion faces up and inward toward the piece that rotates. And I just remembered what this part is called, the rotor. This is called the rotor, and then you have the stator. So rotor, stator. Before we reassemble the motor, there's one thing I am going to do. I'm going to take some zoom spout oil and put just an ever so small dab on the inside of the sleeve. And I mean it when I say do not go crazy when you oil these things, because if you over oil them, this wick that absorbs all the oil will overflow and it'll all leak out and start dripping through the bottom of the motor. The fan will sling it all over the place and it'll just be a magnet for dirt and dust, and then it's going to gum the motor up that much quicker, and you're going to have this thing apart a whole lot sooner than you should. So don't go crazy with the oil when you're oiling and lubricating these bearings. And again, when you do the sleeve, just very lightly put a small little portion on the shaft of the rotor. I'll even demonstrate for my visual learners like I am. That might be a little too much, but that's enough. And then same concept on the other side. Just a little bit. And that's all it's getting. And yes, a lot of people say, well, you're supposed to use SAE20 non-detergent. Well, yes, you can use that, but you can also use zoom spout, because this is a very fine all-purpose turbine oil. People have used this stuff for years. Sewing machines, motors, you name it, it's probably been used on it. In fact, I even use it in my Hunter ceiling fans with the oil bath, because it works just as well, if not better, than the OEM oil that you buy from Hunter themselves. And one bottle of zoom spout oil is a whole lot cheaper than buying a tube of oil with the pipe cleaner from Hunter. Because years ago when I bought a 1-ounce tube, I think it was like $19.78 or something like that. But that was over a decade ago, and when you count for inflation in today's world, you're going to be paying probably double that amount. And one tube will only do a single fan, whereas a tube of zoom spout oil will do 4 of these. So you do the math. And something that you need to note whenever you reassemble the motor, there's a certain way that I like to do this, and I've been doing it this way for years, and I've yet to have any issue with it. You'll want to evenly seat the motor, and what I mean by that is you'll want to take the bolts and the nuts, and then you'll want to snug them in a cross pattern. So you'll want to snug one, then the other a little, and just keep going back and forth until they're both snug. Do not over tighten them so you don't bow the casing. And then I'll show you how to seat the bearing. So now that you have tightened sequentially in a cross pattern both of the bolts that hold the motor together, to seat the bearing, what I like to do, and a lot of people have done, is you take a screwdriver and you do like this. It's better to hold the motor with your free hand. I can't because I'm using my telephone, but basically you'll just want to take the screwdriver handle and do like that to seat it. And you can see that's turning nice and free. And so that's how you properly seat the bearing on a motor. And before we do anything else, let's see if it works. Okay, medium, low, and then off. All right, that's better. Well, since it works, I'll go ahead and start reassembling it. Now, don't that spin just so much nicer? Before it was like, wee, 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 open up, wee, wee. But now it goes, wee. All right, that's better. It's probably the best that thing's ever ran on low in the almost 4 years that I've worked here. Let's go medium. Now high. Honestly, medium runs about like what high was, and then high is like turbo now. All right, good deal. And one more thing I will point out is that depending on how much you use your fan, you shouldn't have to do this, but like maybe every 3 to 5, maybe even 5 to 7 years, depending on how much you use the fan. I mean, if you use this thing from 24/7 basically during the spring and summer months, you probably have to do it probably every 3 to 5 years, but if you don't use it that much, maybe every 5, 7, heck, maybe even 8, 10 years. I mean, obviously it will vary depending on the environmental conditions that the fan's used in and whatnot. But anyway, I hope you folks got something out of this, and that's it.